Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about the sandwich generation. Many women in midlife find themselves taking care of their growing children while also wanting to help with aging parents. Join us as we explore this topic with a friend who has great wisdom to offer. Let's get started. Listeners, today we're going to be talking about living in the sandwich generation. This term for women caring for both kids and parents paints a vivid picture of one of the most common struggles in midlife. According to the internet, this sandwich generation ranges in age from 35 to 54, and they feel more stressed than any other age group as they balance the demanding, delicate acts of caring for growing children and their aging parents. And today we have our friend Stephanie Mathis joining us to share her personal experience, and we hope it will be both informative and inspirational as we explore this important topic. Stephanie, welcome to Midlife Matters.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you today, and I know that you have a lot of wisdom to share with us because you actually had your mom move in with you, and you're going to share what that was like caring for both your mom and your growing family. Can you introduce yourself a little bit to listeners?
Yes, my name is Stephanie Mathis. My husband is Johnny, and I have two twin daughters the age of 30.
And Julie, you actually know Stephanie better than Mindy and I. Why don't you tell us how you met Stephanie and how you came to get to know her?
Yeah, Stephanie is a friend that I met back in our homeschool years. We were in the same co-op or tutorial, and her daughters are the age of my oldest daughter, and they were good friends all through high school. And so I've known Stephanie a lot, and I've gotten to see her in all her roles. She's amazing, and she's definitely a caregiver. That's one of her gifts.
Yeah, you must be an Enneagram 2, Stephanie.
Okay.
Marie would know.
And actually, longtime listeners have got to hear your daughter, Stephanie. Meredith was on our What to Wear episode 24. And now that we are out of our sweatpants and getting back into real clothes, listeners may want to go back and listen to episode 24 because Meredith did a great job of telling us what we should be wearing and how to look stylish in midlife. So that would be one to go back and check out in the archives.
She did. I wish you could see Stephanie right now. She's all put together.
Oh, wow.
Well, because she put me together. That's
You can look at Stephanie, but not the three of us.
Right. No. Well, Stephanie, tell us about the phase of life you were in when your mom moved in. Like, what was happening in your life? How old were you? How old were your kids? What kind of roles were you in at that time?
my daughters, they were in the fourth grade. They were 9, about to be 10. I was homeschooling and involved in different roles in our homeschool group. The girls were involved in after-school activities such as sports and ballet, and we were very involved in our church, which was 30 minutes away on a good traffic day. So I was just trying to take care of everything in the home, as well as being a wife, a mother, a teacher, and now a caregiver for my mother.
Well, that sounds like you were kind of right in the thick of where a lot of listeners would probably find themselves. I mean, you have to be really hands-on with your kids at that time. You're hands-on in things outside your home. I mean, it was a very busy time of life.
Yes, it was. It was. And it was hard trying to balance everything and feeling like, I guess I just didn't feel like I was doing everything the way that I should. I wasn't being the wife, the mother, the daughter. I just felt like I wasn't doing anything adequately. That was a hard thing to go through.
I think we all struggle with that. So adding the caregiver role just has to increases that, I'm sure. Well, describe the situation, because I don't think I knew you at the time your mom first moved in, the situation that kind of brought your mom into your home. Like, tell us what kind of conversations you and Johnny had and the girls, like, how did that come about?
Well, my mother fell and she damaged her rotator cuff. She already had a lot of arthritis in that area, so this accident just kept her from being able to drive. She could only raise her arms so high. And she lived 3 hours away, and my father had died earlier. So she was alone. And so my brother and his wife and family and Johnny and the girls and I, well, came together, and we just knew that this was what she needed to do, that we needed to take care of her and we needed to bring her into our lives, and she needed to move out of her home. My mother was a very godly woman, and she had a very strong walk with the Lord. And having gone through different things in her life prior to her marriage had made her a strong woman. So when we approached her with this idea, she was very agreeable because she knew that she just couldn't manage this on her own.
Mm.
So she didn't fight us at all. She was very agreeable about it, and that was a relief because she was a very independent and spunky lady.
Mm-hmm.
How old was she at the time?
80.
Oh, she was 80.
Oh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wow. So it sounds like your whole family came together and everybody
Yes.
was on board.
And that's important. I
Mhm.
mean, it's different when you're the only child, but if you are a family and you can be on the same page, it really takes a team to work together for that person to give them the care and the attention and the love and support that they need.
Yeah.
Because
Wow.
they're struggling too, even though my mother would never say that because she just wasn't that way. I know it had to be difficult for her.
Oh my goodness.
Giving up her freedoms. I know.
Yeah.
It was a blessing that she was so agreeable, but I'm sure she had her own stuff to deal with.
I think so too. Yes.
Mhm. Wow. Well, let's look at this from a practical standpoint. So everyone's in agreement, which is amazing. I feel like the Lord gives unity when He is providing His path and making it straight for us. So
great.
praise Him for that. But I'm curious about your house. Did you automatically have a place that was perfect for her to come into? Did you have to change things or accommodate your mom? Was there certain equipment that she needed? I'm just curious practically, how did you bring her in and make this work in your home?
We took the girls' playroom / schoolroom and we turned it into a suite for her. We moved in as much of her furniture as we could get in there. We put pictures of her family and her past on the wall. We tried to make it as much like her home as we could. It was on the floor where it was right next to the kitchen, across from the laundry room, close to the living room. I mean, the family room. So she was, it was pretty handy for her, but the girls willingly gave that up for her.
Did it have a bathroom attached or did you have to build
Yes.
something? Okay.
It was already attached. Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That was really good.
Yeah, it was a beautiful room. I know you guys had fun decorating it too.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my God. Well, Stephanie, you've already mentioned you had a very full life even before bringing your mom in. And so I'm curious now, what did your life look like as you adjusted and added this role and added your mom to your home? Kind of just
how did our lives change?
Yes. Can you just describe how your life changed, how you adjusted?
She was a severe diabetic and in the beginning stage of dementia. So, like I said, she was very independent and spunky prior to that. But once the dementia began to come, she became less confident. She became more insecure. Where she had been such a people person before, she was just very comfortable just being with our family. She was just fine with that. And my brother's family and our friends, that may come. But as far as being involved in church the way she had been before, in missions, that was just not her anymore. So that was, we had to take her to her appointments.
Mm-hmm.
The girls, like I said, were being homeschooled, so we had to be creative in the way they would have their schooling. So we might do it in the car. We might do it in a doctor's office. And as her dementia began to increase, she became more and more dependent on us because of her fearfulness and insecurity. So it did limit our ability to do things outside of the house. And as her dementia worsened, she would also get up during the night and take her insulin and eat her breakfast, thinking that it was time for her to do that. So her sleeping downstairs and our bedrooms being upstairs, that was a hard thing. So we had to make changes there. We had to try to beat her up. Getting up in the morning.
Right.
You know what I mean? We had to try and get up before she got up in the morning so that she wouldn't do this. We would hide her food, hide her insulin. We would just do anything we could to protect her because it was a challenge. It really was. And we, as a family, just took turns. Our daughters would stay with her as she got worse, and we would go out, or they would go out and we would stay with her. But she constantly had to have someone with her.
Was your brother close by enough to be able to help?
Yes, because he and his wife both worked and their children were in school. Because she was more independent at first, she was able to stay home more and be just fine. But as she got worse, she would sometimes just sit in the dark in the same chair all day. And one of my nieces, came home to find her that way. And that's when we realized that she needed to come and live with us permanently. So we, being home, I could take care of her and be there for her. But yes, they did help. At first, when she came, she made the decision to alternate between houses so that we could have more one-on-one time with her, but also we would have more freedom in our family to be able to go and do. And I thought that's just the kind of woman that she was. And I will just say that she was very easy to deal with. She was very kind, and she was very thoughtful, and it just made it easy to work with her.
Were you able to continue within your roles at the church and in the homeschooling group and things like that, or did you have to kind of back off those things?
I did have to back off. I continued in the homeschool group. And at church, I continued my role there. But she no longer wanted to go to her women's Sunday school class because she felt very insecure and fearful. So she would go into Johnny's Sunday school class, which was just fine with everybody there. And so, but we had to give up like our Wednesday nights so that we could be with her. We just she was our main focus. So whatever we were willing to do that. And Rachel and Meredith were on board with that. So we just did what we could do as a team to make it work for her.
Right. And how many years total was she living with you?
10.
Okay. So like when you got to the point where she couldn't be by herself, what year was that?
8.
Okay, so there had been quite a few years where you had been able to continue sort of normal activities.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many years did she rotate between you and your brother's house?
8.
Oh, okay. Years. Okay, so she was able to rotate back and forth for 8 years.
Right. Yes.
How did you do that? Like monthly or week?
Monthly.
Okay.
And it was her idea. She suggested the month.
Okay.
Why don't I stay a month with your brother and then I stay a month with you?
Okay. So just to kind of recap, because I got a little confused. So basically she broke her arm or her wrist.
Oh, a rotator cuff.
Okay. She broke her rotator cuff and she came, that was around age 80. And she decided that she would live bi-monthly. Is that the right term? Like 1 month with you, 1 month with your brother?
Yes.
Then 8 years into it, your niece came home, found her kind of sitting in the dark. She was starting to get dementia. So around 88, you took her into your
Yeah.
home full time at age 88.
And she'd always had dementia, but by the age of 88, it had increased
Okay.
Okay.
significantly.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I've heard before that, that can be difficult caring for dementia. Like sometimes they're very combative or, they don't want to do what you want, but you're saying that your mother was very easy to work with.
Very easy. In fact, that's what my husband said to be sure and point out that what a jewel she was, because she would thank you for things that you had done for her. After age, I don't know if I should jump ahead like this, but at about the end, about 90, we finally put her in an assisted living because of her safety. She needed round-the-clock care, and we found her in the floor. She had fallen during the night as she was getting up out of her bed and had been there forever. And, well, I guess we don't know how long because she didn't know either. So that was when we decided as a family that we needed to put her in assisted living. But after being in this assisted living for not quite a year, they approached us that she needed to go into the memory care unit so that she could get more care. So we put her in there. And like I said, at that time, when I would go in to paint her nails or brush her teeth or whatever I did, she would always say, "Thank you, Steffi, for taking such good care of me." So that she never really forgot our family. There were others that she may forget, but she always remembered us.
That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can't really underestimate the time and just the impact that this had on your family over the course of 10 or 12 years. How did you and your husband and your girls, how did you all cultivate your own relationships with each other? And what did that look like?
Well, we just knew that our main focus was her right now, and things were going to be different, and that we were just going to have to make changes. The girls approached us one day and said that they were ready. They just wanted to begin to have friends over again. And not that their friends didn't come, but they wanted to have groups of friends. They wanted to have get-togethers. They always had friends over, but they wanted to just do more. And they were in their junior and senior year of high school. And that was a concern for me because I thought, I want them to enjoy their teenage years. I want them to enjoy these last few years with their friends. And so when they approached me about that, I thought, well, I told them, I said, that's fine with me, but I just can't take on one more thing. And they said, well, we'll do it then. And they did. And they handled it wonderfully. And that was good for them. It was, and that is one thing they do love to do is they love to entertain and they love to cook. And so that's just been a real blessing. They also, Rachel and Meredith learned at an early age that life wasn't all about them. They learned that they needed to care for others. And they did learn that by caring for their grandmother. They learned to call 911 and they did that several times when we weren't there, as she was going into a diabetic coma. They learned how to check her blood sugar levels. They learned how to give her insulin, which she did it through a shot. They learned how to clean up after her and dress her. And so they matured and grew in a different way during those years that has now carried on into their lives now. So we just became a team. We just talked and we knew that we didn't know how long this was going to last, but we knew we needed to work together and be a team, and we had to depend on each other. So really, it drew us closer together.
What about your husband? Did you feel like there wasn't any real time for you and your husband? Because probably any time you do have, you devote, to your mom and then your girls. And then it seems like the husband gets pushed to the very back of the line, even though we know from magazines that that's not what we should do. But this is real life here. So
And that's true. He was on board with this from the very beginning. I'd like to say that we had date night and that we did things, but we didn't. And every now and then he would say, I'm running to Costco. You want to run with me? And I go, yeah. So, but it would be fun just being together, going to Costco or running. And some days he would say, the girls are with your mom. You want to go for a ride? So we would go for a ride and get a coffee or something. You know, you just have to be creative in the way that you do things because it is a change and it can be stressful. And the reason it can be stressful, and it was for me, because I wasn't sure if I was doing everything right. I wanted to meet her needs the best way that I could, but I wasn't always sure that I was doing it the right way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Also, I'm not a natural leader. I am more of a one-on-one person. I had to become her advocate. I had to become her voice and her caregiver. And that was something I was totally out of my comfort zone in that, but that was good for me.
Well, I would say, wasn't that where your husband stepped in? He was very supportive in that and helped in that area.
Yes, but the doctor's appointments and dealing with the medical side of it, that was
you.
That was me.
Yeah. Stephanie, since I know you and your family, I already know the answer to this question, but I think this is a really beautiful part of your story. Just how did this whole experience shape kind of who you are today? And really, especially, I'd like to hear about how it shaped your girls. Because I know you shared at times that you were concerned, like, how is this impacting their teenage years? Like, is this, are they getting the normal teenage years, whatever that is, you know, and like how you were worried about maybe how that would impact them. And
yes, I was worried. And like I had said before, I saw them mature and grow in ways that I look back at my life at that age, and it was all about Stephanie. It was like all about who I was dating, where I was, what friend I was going to be with, what I was going to wear. It was that. And Rachel and Meredith, they weren't able to do that. They weren't able to be that. But as I look at them now, they have more of a sensitivity to their friends that are now beginning to deal with it with their grandparents. And their friends will actually come to them and say, I knew if anybody understood, you would understand what I'm feeling and what I'm going through. Meredith pointed that out to me yesterday. And I think that this has helped them to have a ministry. It has helped them to, like I said, get their eyes off of themselves. But yet they were still able to have, like I said, they had their friends over, they would entertain. And so many times we would take Mom with us. And she loved it until the dementia got so bad that it was really frightening for her to get out of her comfort zone, out of her chair, out of our home. And so we just had to allow them to just have, like I said, still be involved, still do the things that they love to do, still be with their friends, but they just had to kind of do it differently. But I don't think they have any regrets, but they will tell you that they had to mature in ways that other people their age didn't. They didn't have a choice.
Right.
Well, Stephanie, they are special girls, and I know that you're really proud of them for how they handled all that. And you know, you worry about the effects, and then the very things you worry about often turn out to be the very blessings that come out of something like that.
Right. Exactly.
Amen, Julie. Stephanie, what would be the thing that you would say was the hardest part of this season of your life?
The hardest part for me was accepting that my mother was no longer the mother. She was a very wise, godly woman, and she was strong. And we all went to her for advice, every one of us. And then to all of a sudden not be able to go to her and to be the one that had stepped up. And I don't know I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but I had kind of stepped up into the mother role.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I didn't want to do that. I wanted my mother back. I wanted her to be my best friend again. And she was, but we just had to do it in a different way. So I grieved. I grieved a lot. And then finally, once I accepted that the roles had changed and I learned how to have a good relationship with her in a different way, that helped. That was a big help to me. And it was hard balancing everything out. As her needs were increasing, the girls were getting older and my plate was getting fuller.
Right.
And not wanting them to miss out on any of the teenage years and enjoying that, trying to do that and balance everything, that sometimes was very, I guess you could say, stressful. Because as I said earlier, I felt like I wasn't fulfilling any of my roles adequately. I felt I was lacking in those. And she also, when you have dementia, as it was getting worse, she would ask the same question over and over again. So you had to find ways in which to deal with that, such as you knew the question she was going to ask. So you would write the answer on a note and you would say, "Read your note, Mom." Okay. And so, but you would say, "Read your note" maybe 10 times in 20 minutes. So sometimes that may have been hard, but you realize that she couldn't help it. That if the shoe had been on the other foot and it had been me and her, she would have done a much better job than I did. But she would have been very loving and patient and kind with me. And so those are some of the things that made it harder.
I always like to think of it in reverse. At one point, you were asking all the questions.
Yes.
Over and over again as a young
Yes.
child, and I'm sure she had great patience with you, and that's what you did for her.
That's exactly right.
Wow. I love that you're sharing this with us. And again, let's just come back to you for just a minute, not in a selfish way, but I'm just curious. We always feel like it's selfish to take care of ourselves, but I do genuinely want to know, Stephanie, was there a way that you were able to sometimes step away, get refreshed yourself? I mean, it sounds like sometimes you weren't really getting a good night's sleep for fear of missing something, needing to be there. You're there for everybody else. How are you taking care of Stephanie just during this time?
As I was talking with Julie earlier, we're all created and designed differently. So the way that might refresh me might not be the way it might refresh someone else. I am more of an introvert, so I enjoy a lot of alone time or one-on-one time. So one thing I had was a friend that lived in another town, a close friend. My family would encourage me to go spend the weekend with her. And that was always refreshing because you're constantly wondering, is she all right? Is everything okay? And I'm saying this as she progressively got worse. But and so it kind of gives you time to just go out and do something fun for yourself, to be with a good friend that has the same likes that you like, to laugh. That's very important. And that's one thing we did do a lot in our home because that was very important. It's important for the person that you're taking care of as well as yourself to keep everything as happy as you can. And so I would just do things like that, or I may go shopping, or I do like to piddle around with decorating. I would decorate or change something around. It would be things that would be refreshing for me, might not be refreshing for others, but I would choose those things that would help me in that area.
Yeah, I would imagine that it's hard to squeeze out those times. Like even leaving for the weekend, that seems like a logistical nightmare almost, because you're leaving your husband and your two girls in charge, or maybe your brother and his wife take on more of a role that weekend. Like it's not easy to go out of town if you have kids. And then if you're also caring for an aging parent, that really makes it even harder. So the fact that you were able to do that really shows what a team your family was to pull together and make that possible for you to do that and be refreshed while you're there, not having all the worries from home on your mind the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah, it sounds like your husband, was the kind of the instigator of that. Like,
yes,
he knew you needed that and helped out to arrange that. So that's a huge blessing.
I mean, just a trip to Starbucks by myself,
Right?
to get a coffee, to ride around. I think I'm just going to go to Murfreesboro. I felt like I had gone on a vacation with my coffee going, and it's just things like that. You just have to find little things to bring you joy.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your husband before we go on. Like, I mean, he's kind of an unsung hero in this story because all husbands may not be dying to have their mother-in-law move in and have their wife be a full-time caregiver. Like, really?
And he described her mom as a jewel.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about that dynamic.
Yes.
My husband adored my mother. She was like a mother to him. He adored my father too. So he felt like he had two sets of parents. My husband, first of all, he is a nurturer and a caregiver by nature. So falling into this role was something that he was already doing for us as a family anyway. He saw the need of it and he wanted to help her. She had been such a blessing to him in the years that we had been married. So he wanted to, in return, to take care of her and bless her and help her. He would, like I said, take her to Sunday school class with him. And times when she had moved into the memory care unit, and I would visit that friend, he would say he would go and check on her along with my brother. But he knew that he wanted to make sure she was all right. But at the same time, he knew that I would be more comfortable as well. Because once she moved to the memory care unit, I was with her pretty much 24/7 because in her mind, everything was, when they would say, my mother's name was Ruth. So they would say, Miss Ruth, how are you today? Fine. Are you in any pain? No. Are you okay? Yeah. But I knew she wasn't. I knew that she was in pain. I knew that she wasn't okay. So I needed to be there to be her voice for her. So Johnny relieved me and my brother when I would go, and that was just something. I think it's because he had such a love for her, and he already has that caregiver nurturer in him anyway. So
it's awesome. I mean, she really was a very lucky woman.
Yes.
She was. And we were very blessed to have her as well. Very, very blessed.
All right, Stephanie, without being nosy here, can we talk about finances? Like, did you have a lot to learn about taking care of her finances as she progressed? And just like, what do listeners need to know that might find themselves, in a similar situation?
Johnny and my brother took care of her finances, but when I mentioned this to him, he said, well, first of all, my mom had already taken care of her will, her power of attorney, her living will. She had taken care of all of that before she moved in. My brother had worked with someone to help her get this all in order. So Johnny said that he would encourage all parents to have these things in place before they're needed, so that it helps the family come together and everyone is on the same page because she already has out what she wants, what her desires are. And so you basically are just following what she's already asked you to do.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine, though, that like there's extra expenses incurred in having her in your home. And like she probably sold her house to come and live with you.
Yes.
Then you have the finances of putting her in memory care. I mean,
Yes.
I have 3 other siblings, and I could see how it could get very messy, or we could have some heated discussions on finances because you're trying to make it fair for the person that's doing the full-time caregiving, but you're also trying to safeguard some money for in case they need to go into a long care. Like there's a lot of issues that come up that you may not even anticipate right from the beginning.
And she had put money back for an assisted living already.
Oh,
She had
okay.
already had a fund that she was already paying monthly into so that in case this ever happened. You're right. Once she got in there, my brother and Johnny had to come together as a team. What is good is that the two of them work together well. And so they would just keep each other on top of what was going on, bills that needed to be paid. But yes, as she did live in our home, we had to sell her house. That's right. And we had to move her out. And then as she stayed with each of us, she would find ways to bless us financially each year, to bless us and I guess in her way of saying thank you for taking care. Rachel and Meredith will tell you that when she was in her beginning stages of dementia, she would pay them $10 to carry her purse. And so they were both fighting over her purse. And Rachel would say, we had some money back then. But then as her dementia got worse, she would say, I'll give you a quarter if you'll carry my purse. So anyway, we have that purse. That purse is a real reminder of her. And because her purse, that was real important to her, that purse always be there. I think that was a security thing. So yes, it was just she felt she wanted to help us out and bless us for helping her.
Oh, that's great that she was such a good planner and had anticipated a lot of these things in advance.
Yes.
Yeah, because so many people, I think, are so resistant. They don't want to face this stage of life. And they think, well, not planning for it will keep it from ever happening,
Well, I think that happened. Yes. Yes. I think that my father passing away and my brother just stepped up to the plate and along with Johnny and just felt like that they needed to do this for her.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, if you had a friend getting ready to go through something like this, like what is some wisdom or encouragement that you would give to them? Because even though you've spoken a lot about how rewarding it was, it is very daunting and it is a huge change. So what would you say to someone?
I think it's important that you have free conversation in your family about what you're feeling. If you're feeling stressed or it's like you just need to open up and share. You just can't hold it in because it's not going to always be that way. And there were times, I'm being honest, I had to apologize to Mom for getting frustrated because there were times when I just felt like so overwhelmed. So I think that communication with one another and even with that person, your family member, I think that's very important. You have to find new ways of doing things together. One thing she loved was sharing photos. She loved looking at home movies. She loved stories. And, I would tell a story and she would say, Steffi, I love it when you tell stories about our life. And I'm a storyteller, so I enjoyed doing that. And she enjoyed listening to that. You have to change what the normal was before and make a new norm, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You have to give them responsibilities that they can handle. Before she went into the memory care unit and assisted living, she basically just sat in her chair all day. But prior to that, I would give her little jobs that I knew that she could handle, but you don't want them to ever feel like they're not needed.
Mm.
You want them to always feel important. You want them to feel that they contribute a lot to your family. So you
Mhm.
find the things that they can do so that they can feel that way.
Mhm.
She would wash dishes. I would ask her to dust, and 5 minutes later, she would say, "I'm finished, Steffi." And I knew that in 5 minutes, she couldn't have dusted the downstairs. But I'd say, "Well, thanks, Mom," and you would give her another thing to do. It's kind of like you just want them to see how important they are. So those things have to change. But I think basically, you have to be willing to change with them. You can still have that relationship with them, but it's just going to be in a different way.
Mhm. Yeah, it sounds like it was a lot of mental preparation and planning, even just for your day, because if an activity is
Mhm.
taking 5 minutes, you're going to have to plan a lot of activities.
Exactly. And it was. Or you may say, "Did you get that table over there?" I don't know. Let me go do that one again. So,
Okay.
you
Mhm.
may have to. Yes, you're right. You do. But it's kind of like, I don't want,
You don't want to compare them to like toddlers or something, but that is what you're
Yeah.
doing when you have young kids too. It's like,
yes.
can you wash this window? They do one squirt and yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of mental activity to
It
constantly be
is.
thinking of how to direct and what to say and keeping them safe. It is a
Yeah.
lot like a child, in some ways.
Yeah, but not in a disrespectful way, but just for
No.
that caregiving is a lot of work. I'm wondering, we didn't talk about this in the finances, but did you ever or were you ever able to hire like outside help? Like,
Oh, well, when the girls were like in their senior year and junior year, and she came to live with us full time, yes, we would hire a sitter to come, but it would be someone that she knew, because you didn't want, she was so fearful by then
oh, I
Mm.
see.
and so insecure that it was important that it would be someone that she was familiar with or a family member.
I see.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So a friend would come.
Would you hire out other things like maybe you get a house cleaner because you are spending a lot of time doing other things, or like, I don't know, other things around your house, because you really can't fulfill every single thing you always would have thought you had been responsible for.
And that would be a great idea. Yes, I didn't do it, but it was just because at that time financially we couldn't have done that. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, I think that would be a wonderful thing to do. That would alleviate some of the stress that you're feeling. And if you could go pick up your groceries back then the way you do now,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yes.
would have been a huge help too.
Yeah.
You
Right.
just got to learn how to do things differently. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all in all, I know that you would say that this decade or so of taking care of your mom was one of your greatest blessings. And it's so encouraging to hear that. My daughter-in-law's family has cared for her grandfather, and he's lived in the home for, I don't know, it might be a decade. And she always speaks very highly of growing up in that situation, too. And it's funny because she's a 2, and she's probably more caregiving and just has that more nurturing nature, could be from taking care of her grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that, and I definitely believe that for Rachel and Meredith. I mean, I know that and they grew in confidence. I just remember Meredith going with me to the memory care unit. There were other people that were not quite as aware of what was going on as Mom was. And Meredith would just sit there and talk to them and, listen to them. And And I thought, wow, what a great experience for her to go through. Because when I was growing up, my mom would always say, come on, we're going to go to the nursing home. And I think, oh, me. And then, so we would go and we would visit everybody in the nursing home that she knew. And then when I would come home from college, she would say, you need to go visit Mrs. so-and-so in the nursing home. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, I am home on college break. I'm going to go visit her in the nursing home. And so I would go do that. But Rachel and Meredith, they just grew up with that. So they don't think anything about that. And that's what I'm saying. They were not about themselves. They have always been about others. I was a very selfish individual and thought about myself.
I think pretty much we all do. I mean, most of us didn't grow up in a caregiving situation.
No, you're right. But it's kind of embarrassing when you think about the way they were and then the way I was, And my mother was a caregiver by nature. Mm-hmm. She took care of people. I mean, those that didn't have food, she would take them dinners, or she would provide them a turkey for Thanksgiving, and she always took us with her to do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm mentally running through my kids' personalities thinking, are they a caregiver? Are they a caregiver? Let's see. Can I count on that one to be a caregiver? But I just want to say right now that not everyone's a caregiver, but you still might be called to this situation, and God can equip you and make you a caregiver for those years.
That's exactly. Just like I'm not a person that likes to take charge. So the doctor thing, when I'm listening to them explain everything to me, and trying to be her mouthpiece, that was totally out of my comfort zone right there. So
I could do that all day, Stephanie.
Well, I should have gotten you to go with me.
But we do. We all have different ways of being refreshed. Right. We all have different ways of personality. But I think when it comes to, just like we all, no matter whether we're Enneagram 2s or not, we all love and care for our kids. Like when it's your own family, you rise to the occasion. And so I think listeners can be encouraged by the fact that even if you wouldn't consider yourself necessarily one of those caregivers for your own parents and the own people that you love in your life, you can do this.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And you're going to all handle it differently. It's going to be in different ways. There's not a right way or a wrong way. It's the best way for your family. It's like Johnny wanted me to point out. He said that my brother, his family, and our family all realized that our mother needed us after a lifetime of caring for us. Mm-hmm. And we were going to do whatever it took together to care for her. Mm-hmm. And so it may not look like mine. It may be totally different. There's not a best, my way's not the right way. It's just how we handled it. Mm-hmm. And I think you all work together to do what you can do.
Yeah. That's the best starting point, at least, to be on the same page.
Right.
And work together from there. Yeah. And I think it's neat what you just said, like you were worried about your girls having normal teenage years, and it sounds like they didn't. I mean, like, we fight against the selfishness of the teenage years. And you didn't get that experience, which is great. That was such a blessing that came out of that.
It was a very blessing. And they are still a blessing to this very day with what was developed in them through that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, Stephanie. I know that as I listen to the experiences of other people, I always grow and learn something myself. It inspires me. And, there's probably going to come a time where I recall something you've said and use it in my own life.
I hope so. Good.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. It was very inspiring.
So meaningful. And I love hearing just the love and respect and admiration that you had for your mom. Truly encouraging, and just really touched me to hear your story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is not something that very many of us are going to escape. If we are in midlife, we're probably going to deal with this issue. So listeners, if you are listening today and thinking, oh, this is coming up for me, or I'm experiencing this right now, we hope that this was encouraging to you. And if you have anything you want to share on this topic, you can contact us at Midlife Matters Podcast on Instagram or email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. All right, Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us, and we appreciate you sharing your wisdom.
Thank you, and thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you for doing this.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later.
Okay.
All right, bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.